On January 23, 2025, President Donald Trump signed an executive order titled Strengthening American Leadership in Digital Financial Technology, which represents a pivotal change in U.S. policy towards digital assets, blockchain technology, and cryptocurrency. This EO is designed to enhance the competitive stance of the United States in the growing digital asset economy by promoting innovation, ensuring regulatory clarity, and safeguarding individual freedoms. Key provisions of the Executive Order. 1. Regulatory clarity. The EO establishes a new working group within the National Economic Council (NEC) chaired by David Sachs to propose a federal regulatory framework for digital assets. This group includes significant agency heads, such as the Treasury Secretary and SEC Chair. 2. Timeline for action. 30 days, agencies are required to identify existing regulations that affect the digital asset sector. 60 days, agencies must submit recommendations to modify or rescind the identified regulations. 180 days, the working group is expected to deliver a report to the President that proposes a cohesive regulatory framework and evaluates the potential establishment of a national digital asset stockpile. 3. Central Bank Digital Currencies (CBDCs). The EO explicitly prohibits the establishment, issuance, or promotion of CBDCs in the U.S., citing concerns about financial privacy and sovereignty. Instead, it encourages the development of dollar-backed stablecoins. For revocation of previous orders, the EO rescinds the Biden administration's March 2022 EO concerning digital assets and the Treasury's International Engagement Framework, indicating a clear departure from the previous administration's regulatory approach. Common key points across sources. The consensus across various analyses highlights the EO's objective to position the U.S. as a leader in the digital asset space, emphasizing the need for clear regulations that support the growth of the industry while protecting consumer rights. The establishment of the NEC Working Group is viewed as a crucial step to streamline regulatory efforts and eliminate overlaps among federal agencies. Differences between sources. Some sources emphasize Trump's push for rapid regulatory clarity and innovation, contrasting it with Biden's more cautious, research-oriented approach. This reflects a broader political context where Trump's actions are framed as a necessary response to perceived overreach and suppression of innovation under Biden's administration. Timeline of events. January 23, 2025, Trump signs the EO. Pivoting U.S. policy on digital assets. Post-inauguration, quick appointments of regulatory leaders signal a new approach, with Caroline Pham as acting CFTC chair and Mark Uyeda as acting SEC chair. Upcoming actions. 30 days, agencies to identify regulations. 60 days, recommendations due. 180 days, report on regulatory proposals expected. Use cases in data. The EO aims to foster innovation in the digital asset sector, which has experienced significant growth, evidenced by Bitcoin's price exceeding $100,000 in December 2024. A proposed national digital asset stockpile may leverage cryptocurrencies seized by federal law enforcement, enhancing the government's role in managing digital assets. Implementation phases and budget. The implementation of Trump's executive order on digital assets will occur in 4 critical phases, with a budget of $5 million allocated for infrastructure development. 1. Phase 1, days 1 to 30, regulatory assessment. Agencies will inventory existing regulations affecting digital assets. Budget, $1 million for administrative support and regulatory analysis. 2. Phase 2, days 31 to 60, recommendations submission. Agencies will propose modifications to existing regulations. Budget, $2 million for legal consulting and stakeholder engagement. 3. Phase 3, days 61 to 180, framework development. The working group will draft a cohesive regulatory framework and evaluate the national digital asset stockpile. Budget, $1 million for expert consultations and public workshops. Phase 4 post 180 days, implementation and feedback. Rollout of the new framework and collection of industry feedback. Budget, $1 million for outreach and education initiatives. Conclusion. Trump's executive order on digital assets signals a foundational shift in U.S. regulatory policy emphasizing rapid innovation, clear guidelines, and a rejection of CBDCs while aiming to restore America's leadership in the digital economy. The next 6 months will be crucial as federal agencies work to implement these directives, setting the stage for the future of digital assets in the United States. The implementation of Donald Trump's Executive Order EO on digital assets titled Strengthening American Leadership in Digital Financial Technology, signed on January 23, 2025, introduces a series of strategic shifts in U.S. digital asset policy. This EO is structured into 4 critical phases with a $5 million budget allocated for infrastructure development focused on enhancing the regulatory landscape for digital financial technologies while explicitly prohibiting the establishment of Central Bank Digital Currencies (CBDCs) in the U.S. Key phases of implementation. 1. Phase 1, Identification of regulations, 30 days. Within the first 30 days following the EO, federal agencies, including the Department of the Treasury and the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC), are required to identify existing regulations that impact the digital asset sector. This move acknowledges the complex regulatory environment that has developed over recent years, particularly under previous administrations. 2. Phase 2, Recommendations submission, 60 days. In the subsequent 60 days, the identified agencies must submit recommendations concerning the regulations they have reviewed. This includes suggestions on whether those regulations should be modified, rescinded, or adopted into a new framework that aligns with the EO's objectives. 3. Phase 3, Regulatory Framework Development, 180 days. The working group chaired by David Sachs is tasked with delivering a comprehensive report to the President within 180 days. This report will propose a cohesive regulatory framework for digital assets and evaluate the potential for establishing a national digital asset stockpile, which could include cryptocurrencies seized by federal law enforcement. 4. Phase 4, Infrastructure Development and Public Engagement. The EO allocates a budget of $5 million for the development of necessary infrastructure to support the implementation of these regulatory changes. This phase will also focus on public engagement and ensuring that the framework developed is technology neutral and conducive to innovation. Counterintuitive information. 1. Prohibition of CBDCs versus promotion of stablecoins. One of the most striking elements of Trump's EO is the outright prohibition of CBDCs. This stance is counterintuitive considering the trend among many countries exploring CBDCs as a means to enhance financial inclusivity and streamline monetary policy. Instead, Trump's EO promotes dollar-backed stablecoins as a preferred alternative, reflecting a belief that private sector solutions can better serve the economy while safeguarding individual freedoms and financial privacy. 2. Rapid implementation timeline. Trump's EO emphasizes a rapid timeline for regulatory clarity and action, contrasting sharply with the previous administration's more cautious and research-oriented approach. This urgency could be seen as counterproductive by some stakeholders who believe that hasty regulatory changes may lead to unintended consequences such as creating loopholes or inadequately addressing consumer protection concerns. 3. Revocation of predecessor policies. The EO's revocation of Biden's executive order and the Treasury's international engagement framework is a significant shift that may seem counterproductive as it disregards ongoing efforts for comprehensive frameworks that include international collaboration. This move may isolate the U.S. in global discussions on digital asset regulation, contradicting the notion that a collaborative approach is essential for establishing stable international standards. 4. Focus on domestic innovation over international collaboration. The EO delineates a clear pivot towards a US-centric policy emphasizing domestic innovation and regulatory clarity while sidelining international regulatory harmonization. This counterintuitive approach could hinder US competitiveness in the global digital asset arena, where international cooperation is increasingly viewed as vital for mitigating risks and ensuring market integrity. 5. Economic liberty versus regulatory scrutiny. While the EO is framed as a measure to enhance economic liberty and promote innovation, critics argue that the lack of regulatory oversight could expose consumers and investors to greater risks, especially in a sector notorious for volatility and fraud. This juxtaposition raises questions about whether the EO's approach genuinely safeguards economic freedom or inadvertently facilitates an environment ripe for exploitation. Conclusion: Donald Trump's executive order on digital assets marks a significant departure from the previous regulatory framework and sets forth an ambitious agenda aimed at positioning the U.S. as a leader in the digital financial technology space. However, the counterintuitive elements embedded within the EO, such as the prohibition of CBDCs and the rapid implementation timeline, raise critical discussions about the balance between innovation, consumer protection, and international collaboration in the evolving landscape of digital assets. As the implementation progresses, it will be essential to monitor the outcomes of these strategic shifts and their implications for the broader financial ecosystem. The report on President Donald Trump's executive order EO, titled "Strengthening American Leadership in Digital Financial Technology," highlights several critical aspects that may be overlooked by the general public. Here are some of these elements along with their significance. 1. Establishment of a working group and its composition. While the creation of a working group within the National Economic Council (NEC) is mentioned, the specific roles of its members and their influence on policy are often understated. The working group, chaired by David Sachs, includes high-ranking officials from key government agencies such as the Treasury, SEC, and CFTC. This composition not only signifies a coordinated federal approach but also reflects a shift towards a more technology-friendly regulatory environment. Significance: the success of this working group will be pivotal in shaping a cohesive regulatory framework. By bringing together diverse expertise from multiple agencies, it can facilitate more informed decision-making, minimizing regulatory overlap and confusion. The outcome will likely influence the future landscape of digital assets in the U.S., impacting innovation and economic growth. 2. Prohibition of Central Bank Digital Currencies (CBDCs). The EO's explicit prohibition against the establishment of CBDCs is a profound point that could easily be overlooked. It reflects a strong ideological stance against government-controlled digital currencies, contrasting sharply with the growing trend in other countries that are exploring or implementing CBDCs. Significance: by rejecting CBDCs, the administration positions itself as a defender of financial privacy and individual freedoms, appealing to a base that values limited government intervention. This decision may also shape the competitive dynamics of the global digital currency market, as the U.S. maintains a reliance on private sector innovations such as dollar-backed stablecoins. The long-term ramifications may include a bifurcated financial system where private digital currencies coexist alongside traditional banking, potentially complicating monetary policy and financial regulation. 3. Creation of a national digital asset stockpile. The proposal to evaluate the potential establishment of a national digital asset stockpile is a nuanced element that may not receive sufficient scrutiny. This stockpile could be created from cryptocurrencies seized by federal law enforcement, thereby formalizing the government's role in the digital asset ecosystem. Significance: the existence of a national digital asset stockpile could lead to significant implications for how the U.S. government interacts with digital assets. It may serve as a tool for mitigating risks associated with illicit activities while also providing a mechanism for the government to leverage these assets strategically. This could open discussions about asset management, valuation, and the ethical considerations of government involvement in the digital economy. 4. Rapid timeline for regulatory clarity. The EO sets ambitious timelines for federal agencies to identify existing regulations and propose modifications. The timelines, 30 days for identification, 60 days for recommendations and 180 days for a comprehensive report, reflect an urgent approach to regulatory clarity that contrasts with previous administrations' more deliberative tactics. Significance: this urgency could lead to a swift transformation in the regulatory landscape, impacting businesses and investors in the digital asset space. However, the rapid pace may also raise concerns about the thoroughness of the regulatory review process, potentially leading to oversights that could affect consumer protections and market stability. Stakeholders must remain vigilant and engaged to ensure that the regulatory environment evolves in a balanced manner that fosters innovation without compromising security. 5. Revocation of previous executive orders. The EO revokes previous orders from the Biden administration, signaling a clear departure from its policies regarding digital assets. This shift not only resets the U.S. agenda on digital financial technology but also reflects broader ideological divides on government regulation and innovation. Significance: the revocation highlights the fluidity of U.S. policy regarding digital assets and underscores the partisan nature of regulatory approaches. This could create uncertainty for businesses that were attempting to adapt to the previous administration's regulatory frameworks, leading to potential disruptions in the market. It emphasizes the importance of maintaining a consistent regulatory approach to foster investor confidence and market stability. 6. Impact on innovation and economic liberty. The EO emphasizes the importance of innovation and economic liberty, framing the digital asset sector as crucial for America's global leadership. However, the implications of this framing might be understated in broader discussions. Significance: by prioritizing innovation, the administration is encouraging a dynamic environment for startups and established companies alike to explore blockchain and cryptocurrency solutions. This could lead to significant advancements in financial technology. But it also raises questions about the balance between innovation and necessary regulations aimed at consumer protection. The challenge will lie in crafting an environment that nurtures growth while safeguarding against potential risks. 7. Focus on private sector solutions for stablecoins. The EO's focus on promoting dollar-backed stablecoins instead of CBDCs signals a strategic preference for private sector solutions as opposed to government-led initiatives. Significance: this preference indicates a belief in the efficiency and innovation capabilities of the private sector to meet the needs of the digital economy. However, it also raises concerns about the regulatory frameworks necessary to govern these private solutions effectively. Without proper oversight, the rise of stablecoins could introduce new risks to financial stability and consumer protection, emphasizing the need for a robust regulatory framework. 8. Ongoing developments in regulatory enforcement. The report briefly touches on the changes in leadership at the SEC and CFTC, including the establishment of a crypto task force. However, the implications of these changes for regulatory enforcement are not fully explored. Significance: the shift in regulatory leadership may signify a move towards a more collaborative and supportive environment for digital assets. It suggests that enforcement will focus more on clarity and guidance rather than punitive measures. This could create a more favorable environment for innovation and investment, but it also necessitates vigilance to ensure that the absence of aggressive enforcement does not enable bad actors in the ecosystem. Conclusion: the executive order signed by President Trump represents a significant pivot in U.S. policy towards digital assets with far-reaching implications for innovation, regulation, and economic strategy. While the key provisions receive attention, the nuances and potential consequences of these changes warrant deeper analysis. Stakeholders must remain proactive in engaging with the evolving regulatory landscape to ensure that the balance between innovation and protection is maintained effectively. The next steps taken by the newly established working group and regulatory agencies will be crucial in determining the future trajectory of the digital asset ecosystem in the United States. 1. Regulatory clarity and the establishment of a working group. The executive order creates a new working group within the National Economic Council chaired by David Sachs aimed at developing a federal regulatory framework for digital assets. This working group will assess existing regulations and propose modifications or rescissions within specified timelines, effectively streamlining regulatory oversight. This initiative is crucial for fostering innovation while ensuring consumer protections, as it seeks to eliminate regulatory overlaps and enhance clarity within the digital asset sector. 2. Prohibition of Central Bank Digital Currencies (CBDCs). A key provision of the executive order is the explicit prohibition of CBDCs in the U.S., which Trump argues could jeopardize financial privacy and sovereignty. The EO promotes the development of dollar-backed stablecoins, instead positioning them as the preferred digital asset in the U.S. This stance marks a significant departure from the previous administration's exploratory approach towards CBDCs, reflecting Trump's prioritization of private sector innovation over government-issued digital currencies. 3. Revocation of previous orders and a shift in policy direction. The EO rescinds Biden's March 2022 executive order on digital assets, signaling a pivotal shift in U.S. policy. This revocation indicates a move away from the previous administration's focus on responsible innovation and stakeholder engagement towards a more aggressive and rapid approach to digital asset regulation. The new directive emphasizes economic leadership in the digital financial technology space, which could redefine the regulatory landscape as it pertains to digital assets. For implementation timeline and budget considerations, the executive order lays out a clear timeline for action with deadlines for various federal agencies to identify, modify, or rescind existing regulations impacting the digital asset sector. This structured approach is significant as it emphasizes the urgency of regulatory action within a 6-month timeframe. Additionally, a proposed budget of $5 million for infrastructure development underlines the administration's commitment to supporting the digital asset ecosystem, further highlighting the importance of establishing a secure and innovative regulatory environment. 1. Executive Order 13772 on Core Principles for Regulating the U.S. Financial System, February 2017. This executive order, signed by President Donald Trump, aimed to review and potentially roll back many of the regulations implemented after the 2008 financial crisis, particularly those established by the Dodd-Frank Act. The order emphasized a regulatory framework that would promote economic growth and reduce compliance burdens on financial institutions. It established a set of core principles that aim to create a more favorable regulatory environment similar to the recent EO aimed at fostering innovation in the digital asset sector. 2. President Biden's Executive Order 14067 on ensuring responsible development of digital assets, March 2022. This order sought to establish a comprehensive framework for the responsible development of digital assets, emphasizing consumer protection, financial stability, and illicit finance risks. It called for a coordinated approach among federal agencies to explore the implications of digital assets, including the potential development of a U.S. Central Bank Digital Currencies (CBDC). The contrast between this order and Trump's recent EO highlights the ideological differences in handling digital asset regulation and innovation. 3. Executive Order 13873 on securing the information and communications technology and services supply chain, May 2019. This order, also signed by President Trump, aimed to protect the U.S. from foreign adversaries that posed a threat to national security through their control of information and communications technology. It established a framework for identifying and addressing risks associated with foreign supply chains. Similar to the recent EO on digital assets, this order emphasized national security and economic competitiveness, framing regulatory actions within the context of safeguarding American interests. The implementation of President Donald Trump's executive order on digital assets, signed on January 23, 2025, is expected to unfold through 4 critical phases, each aimed at establishing a robust framework for digital financial technology in the United States. The administration has allocated a $5 million budget for infrastructure development to facilitate these initiatives. Here's a forecast of what to anticipate in each phase. Phase 1, Regulatory Inventory Days 1 to 30. Objective, identify existing regulations impacting the digital asset sector. In the first 30 days following the signing of the executive order, federal agencies including the Department of Treasury and the SEC will conduct a comprehensive review of current regulations, guidance documents, and orders that affect digital assets. This step is crucial as it sets the stage for the subsequent phases by highlighting obstacles to innovation and areas requiring modification or repeal. Predictions. Increased collaboration. Agencies will likely increase interdepartmental collaboration, leading to a more coherent understanding of the regulatory landscape. Public input. We may see calls for public comments or insights from industry stakeholders, fostering a collaborative environment for regulatory reform. Phase 2, Recommendations Days 31 to 90. Objective, submit recommendations for regulatory modifications. Within 60 days, agencies will submit recommendations regarding the identified regulations. This phase will focus on determining which regulations should be rescinded, modified, or formalized into new regulations. Predictions. Streamline regulations. Expect a significant reduction in outdated or overly burdensome regulations, particularly those perceived as hindering innovation. Emergence of stablecoins. The focus on dollar-backed stablecoins may gain traction as the administration seeks to support their growth as a viable alternative to CBDCs. Phase 3, Framework Development Days 91 to 180. Objective, deliver a cohesive regulatory framework report. By 180 days post-EO, the newly established working group will present a comprehensive report to the President. This report will outline a proposed regulatory framework for digital assets focusing on market structure, consumer protection, and risk management. Predictions. Creation of a national digital asset stockpile. The report may propose the establishment of a national digital asset stockpile derived from cryptocurrencies seized by federal law enforcement, which could serve as a reserve to support economic stability and innovation. Consumer protections. Expect robust consumer protection measures to be integrated into the regulatory framework aimed at fostering trust in the digital assets ecosystem. Phase 4, Implementation and Monitoring post 180 days. Objective, implement the proposed regulatory framework and monitor its effectiveness. Following the report's release, the administration will commence implementing the new regulatory framework. This phase will involve close monitoring and adjustments based on initial outcomes and feedback from stakeholders. Predictions. Adoption of new regulations. New regulatory measures are likely to be adopted rapidly, with an emphasis on flexibility to adapt to the fast-evolving digital landscape. Increased investment. As regulatory clarity emerges, expect a surge in investments in digital assets and blockchain technologies, positioning the U.S. as a leader in the global digital economy. Overall implications. The executive order represents a fundamental shift in the U.S. approach to digital assets, prioritizing innovation and economic leadership. The rejection of CBDCs in favor of dollar-backed stablecoins signals a clear direction for the future of monetary policy in the U.S. Economic impact. Job creation. The focus on digital assets is expected to create new job opportunities in technology, finance, and regulatory compliance sectors. Global competitiveness. By streamlining regulations and fostering innovation, the U.S. may reclaim its status as a global leader in financial technology. Challenges ahead. Balancing innovation and regulation. The administration must navigate the delicate balance between fostering innovation and ensuring adequate consumer protections and anti-money laundering measures. Public skepticism. There may be public skepticism regarding the implications of the new regulatory framework, particularly concerning privacy and the security of digital assets. In conclusion, the implementation of Trump's executive order on digital assets is poised to transform the regulatory landscape significantly. The outline phases will facilitate a shift towards a more innovation-friendly and competitive digital economy, though careful consideration and coordination will be required to address potential challenges and concerns along the way.